Martin Cooper. He was very good to the young'uns, you know. He let an entire youth movement form around his tables in his yard, man, and he never asked us for any money or anything.
Okay,
he just let us all sit there with one cup of tea and plot the rest of the takeover of Western civilization.
Fantastic.
Every day.
Excellent. So, yeah, I mean, you worked in Probe Records, which is in Matthew Street for people who don't know. There was a whole scene around Probe. What was it like to be part of that then?
Not as terrifying as people would have you believe. I've heard some terrible stories, people going in. I think people tended to forget that Probe was a really successful business. Yes. It still is a really successful business. And having people running, screaming, terrified from the counter is counterproductive when you're trying to sell them things. Yeah. People have a tendency. It was great working. Of course, again, I was a teenager and I was working in a record shop.
Any characters that you worked with at the time?
I worked with Pete Burns and I worked with his wife Lynn. And
yeah.
They were never my favourite people. I mean, you know, I have to say things like that to speak ill but dead, but, you know, Pete Burns, you know, I worked with a little bit more interesting people in Probe, actually. People who were there because they love selling music to people, you know, and that was more important, really, than somebody who later became rather famous and successful, you know.
Yeah, okay. Right, next up is a song titled "Girl, I Love You" version. Okay,
yes,
and version would refer to the
it's a King Tubby dub.
Version,
it's a King Tubby dub of "Girl, I Love You" by Horace Andy, recorded at Channel 1 and dubbed at King Tubby's at Dromley Avenue in Waterhouse in Kingston. Tubby's studio, for the sake. It was actually in a room smaller than this. It was in the back room of his house, which he shared with his wife and his 4 children.
Right.
Well, I was just on the Tubby. He was the TV repairman. He used to fix electrical goods and electronics. And in the late 60s, there was a wave of reconditioned black and white tellies turned up. When America went colour, they reconditioned loads of tellies and sent them to Jamaica, to the Caribbean. They were all dud, but people would buy them and then they would bring them to Tubby and say, "Osborne, fix me telly, man." And he would go, "Look, your telly is no good. Here's a couple of $. I'll take all the valves out." And he took the valves out of everyone's TV. And there's a famous picture of him in which he's sitting with his crown on in front of his amplifier. Just one of his amplifiers. And the amplifier is like the width of this room, man.
Okay.
And it really is, as I stated earlier, it is an incredible story. A triumph of invention over not even invention over resources. He invented that. He made all his own effects and everything. He couldn't afford to buy them, you know. Wonderful stuff. Play it now, man.
And who's it by?
It's credited to the revolutionaries, but it's just King Tubby and Horace Andy, really.
Okay, here we go.
But your love that's gone forever. Gonna
And that was the Revolutionaries with Girl, I Love You version. And you're listening to Mark Rowley chatting with Bernie Connor. Bernie, which clubs actually played reggae back in the late 70s?
There used to be, Eric's used to play. See, of course, the punk rock thing is that there was only 4 punk records and you had to fill an evening somehow, so you just played reggae all night. And because it was, it's the same, so it had the sort of same rebellious overtones and, and that sort of conscious lyrics that sort of connected and resonated with punk.
Yeah.
I always say one of the biggest records of all punk is King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown by Augustus Pablo.
Okay.
Which is one of the most famous pieces of Jamaican music ever made. And
Right.
you ask anybody who was going to those dank clubs at the time that reggae really was the big thing because, as I had tested today, most of the punk records were rubbish, really.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm sorry, I keep saying this and people keep pulling me up.
Okay.
But we used to go down the blues, down in LA, it's like go to Stanley House and Jamaican House and Stanley House and places. And the Nigerian and the Somali were all, and all the clubs, the Silver Sands and the
Sierra Leone
the
Club.
Sierra, they were all open on in the week, man.
Okay.
They were on Ebo, and the Federal. Oh, they were still open when I was a teenager. The Princess Avenue was just dotted with nightclubs, man.
Did they play any punk music?
Yeah, it's like they played Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the Temptations in every yard, man, dead loud, whether you wanted it or not.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's reminding me of something I'll ask you about in a minute. Okay, before I do that, when did you embark on your DJing career, Bernie? And what were your first regular music nights?
There used to be a place behind Probe on Button Street, behind British Home Stores. It was called Lincoln's Inn, and it was. But when Eric's closed down, a lot of the younger kids. When Eric's closed down, a lot of the older sort of punters sort of just dissolved into the background, and we've done our thing there. But a lot of the young kids were seriously unhappy about this, but they sort of congregated in Lincoln's Inn, and because I worked in Probe. I can't even remember his name. No, his name was John or something. This bloke, he just came and said, "Do you want to play some records?"
Yeah.
Oh, what's like DJ? Yeah, of course I do. So he gave me a couple of pints the first time, and then I think like a few weeks later, he gave me a couple of pints and a $5.
Right. Wow.
So that was paid work,
Yes.
One of my favourite. I just. Years ago, you just play whatever you could, really.
What year was that then?
That was 1980.
1980.
That was 1980. The next one, that sort of, I just played wherever I could, really. We just used to just create your own party somewhere, really, because there wasn't that sort of. I used to play in the warehouse in between the bands and what have you, which was always good,
Yeah.
But there was not sort of opportunity for DJ sorts of things in those days. No. Mainly, if you had a band on, if you had 3 bands on, the guy on the sound desk would play a cassette in between the bands, He'd be playing his favourite reggae numbers, testing his sound system.
Yeah. It's still like that a bit these days.
Yeah, of course
it
is. Of course it is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Bernie, as you became more established as a DJ, you were invited to play music on Crash FM.
Yeah.
Okay, it's for people who don't know, it's a local Liverpool commercial radio station. What are your memories of your time there, and do you have any interesting stories to tell us?
No. My memories are pretty negative.
Okay.
It was a zoo run by. To be fair, I hadn't really thought about it for years.
Yes.
And I wrote a little piece about it recently.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to Peter Guy, who runs the celebrated local music blog, Get Into This.
Yes.
And he went, "Will you expand that and send it to the blog?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I will, no problem, mate." So, of course I'd said I'd do it, so I had to do it. But one of the things I realised was that how unpleasant it all was.
Yeah.
How we were just dropped in and treated really appallingly by people who knew exactly what they were doing, that they were treating us appallingly. See, what we didn't realise, we thought that these media types who'd stumped up the money to get us on air had the conviction and the belief in getting an alternative radio station off the ground in Liverpool. But Actually, what became apparent after about 6 months was that they had no intention of this. All they had to the intention of was selling on the license once the 2 years was up to millions and millions of pounds. And we were ruthlessly exploited by that. And they picked up on all our... We were never even given any training or anything. But you know what? I triumphed. I did. Yeah. I did, because I learned how to use a radio studio on my own. And nobody ever gave me any training. I learned the decks. I learned how to use all the hardware, learned how to speak onto a microphone. And my show was absolutely brilliant. My show was so utterly unique, and it basically what the Sound of Music is now. It's pretty unique. It's like the object of the game is to play as much different types of music as you can.
Yes.
Try not to play the same type of music twice.
Okay.
If you can do that in 2 hours, you're really, really good.
Okay, Bernie. Okay, can you tell the listeners, if there are still any out there, the story behind your next choice of song? Okay, You're Gonna Need Somebody on Your Bond by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. I know the story. You play this on Crash FM, so...
Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band recorded live at Frank Freeman's Dancing School in Kidderminster, Worcester in March 1968. I played it on Crash FM once when Robin Jackson, the great Robin Jackson, who used to do one of the shows before me, had been milling around in the studio, and then he got off. After he got off, I played this Captain Beefheart record, and then about, 15 minutes later, the light on the studio phone goes, and I picks up the phone. Hello, Crash FM, and he goes, Ben, it's Robin. It's like, all right, mate, what's happening, man? And he says, I've had to pull over outside the container yard in Seaforth's container terminal. I said, why, what's up? He says, what is this music? I've never heard anything like it in all my life. I was like, you know what, man? It's one of the greatest compliments that anybody will ever say. And he sat in his car and waited for the full onslaught. And it is like the portals of hell opening up live in Kidderminster in March 1968.
Brilliant.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band.